Awesome. Thank you, Miranda. And again, welcome everybody to the Evergreen informational and Q&A session. As always, please find the Q&A icon on your Zoom menu and go ahead and pull that open and start typing in any questions that you might have. I do have a few informational updates that I'd like to go through with everybody, and then I'll definitely jump over to the Q&A and should have plenty of time to answer your questions today. I am basically a one-man show today, so please bear with me as I try to respond to your questions. I hope that Emily is able to join up and may be able to jump in and answer any questions related to prior authorizations. If not, I may need to defer some questions as well, but feel free to pop stuff into the Q&A and we'll go through a few informational updates. So the team has been very busy working on the outstanding issues and also adjusting to the new issue submission form, which again, hopefully everybody has the link to, but I will go ahead and put that in the chat for you as well, just in case. But we do want you submitting all of your questions, issues through this system now. That way we can be the most efficient at responding to your questions and any issues that you're submitting. We also would like to request your patience as we continue to adjust to the process and refine the process so that we're doing the best to respond to your submissions in a timely manner. You can assist us in making that process a little bit more efficient by providing as much detail as possible when you're submitting those issues. So examples would be any relevant person record IDs, any relevant form IDs, the username of the person who was experiencing the issue or who had logged in. If that's you or someone else, what your username is or their username is. If it's related to a location, the location's NPI +3, and any detailed description of the issue. The more details we have, the easier it is for us to determine who should be responding to that issue. So please provide us as much detail as possible. The other way that you can really support us in adjusting to the process and being the most efficient possible in responding to you is trying to be patient once you submit an issue and not follow up with us for at least 3 business days or more if you can wait, if it's not an urgent issue, to check in on the status of that. Again, we are, doing the best that we can to respond to those things as quickly as we can, but it often takes at least a couple of business days for us to get to each of those and respond to those because we are small teams that are backlogged, and especially our resource coordination team, they are doing their best to keep up with your prior authorizations. And so having to stop and respond to questions about the status of the tickets is taking them away from the important work of keeping up with the prior authorization. So again, please keep submitting through that form. Try to be as patient as you can. If it is something urgent, then obviously please do follow up. But if you can wait, give us a couple of business days and we will try to get to those just as quickly as we can. And I also just wanted to note that as we refine the process, we may adjust the categories slightly so that they're a little bit more intuitive for you and they help us get the right issues into the right group at ODE's hands for more expedient response. And we may also incorporate some additional fields specifically related to requests for deletions or modification of records. I had mentioned at one of these meetings several weeks ago that we were going to be coming up with that form when you needed to have us delete something that was created in error or modify something that had a wrong date or something along those lines. But we don't have a way for you to attach that completed form to this ticket submission form itself. And we don't want you to have to jump through a lot of hoops. So we're considering modifying that form slightly for those individuals that need to request a deletion or modification to the record. So more to come on that. We have not incorporated that yet, but I think that's the steps that we're going to be taking for that. Aside from the issue submission form, I did want to say that we are pleased to announce that we did have another successful production deploy on this past Friday, July 12th. And we were able to resolve a few more of the issues that were out there and that were causing some additional work or strife for this team, for you as end users. Those items, I do plan to send out an emailed communication, and I will put the full list of all the items, but I will quickly go through those with this group. There were a couple of modifications to the service implementation plan. One of those was when a PCP was revised, the service implementation plans were not copying forward the goal progress fields. That has been resolved, and those are now copying forward as expected. In addition, the service implementation plan forms themselves should be available for PCP data entry users from your location forms list page. So if you were to navigate to the location that you're logged in under your My Profile, there is an icon under your locations page that's called Forms. And when you go there, you should be able to also see service implementation plan forms there. That was not working when we went live, but that has been resolved. Now, if you are a new provider and you don't have an active assignment to the person's record yet, if you click on one of those SIPs, you'll still get a access denied error, because we are still working through that issue of making sure that providers that don't have an active assignment to the person record can still access that SIP page. But if you are actively assigned, it should navigate you right to the person's record and to that PCP, and you can go to the SIP tab and fill out your SIP. We also were able to resolve an issue with revised annual PCPs that were displaying as blank. That wasn't happening every time you revised a PCP with a type annual, but certain revised annual PCPs were, when attempting to open those, they were showing up as blank, and we were able to resolve that issue. So we do believe that all PCPs should be opening and displaying content for you now. Also, we were able to resolve or improve at least the speed with which the reportable event custom list page is loading. So you should be seeing those reportable events on that reportable event custom list page loading faster. If there are a lot of reportable events for a person's record, it may still take several seconds, but it should be improved from what you had been experiencing before. And we will continue to work on loading speeds in certain areas that are still a bit slower than we would like them to be ultimately. There had been a very temporary issue associated with some of the slowness that we had a couple of weeks ago, where ODES admin and CCM liaisons were unable to add location assignments. That should be resolved as well with some of the improvements that were implemented around the slowness that we were experiencing. The resource coordination team and program management teams or waiver teams will be happy to hear that we also were able to implement so that if MIMS is unable to process a prior authorization and it errors, you will now be able to see within the user interface on the prior authorization form itself the PA error code and description that was sent back from MIMS. So that should help in troubleshooting any of those prior authorizations that MIMS is unable to process successfully. So that's, again, for internal staff, individuals who have access to view the prior authorization form itself. You can find the MIMS error code and descriptions through the user interface now. Sometimes those may not be still 100% human readable, but they're at least something that you can use when troubleshooting with Office of Need Care Services or something along those lines. There's also resolution for the open guardianship query. When that was filtered by a selected location and the user tried to export that, it was giving all open guardianship forms, not just the filtered location selection. That has been resolved and should now be exporting with just the content data that corresponds with the location that you selected. And there was also access related issue for the APS admin role, where when you were inside of an APS report, you were unable to see the view APS report information all printer friendly icon. That should be showing up for the APS admin role again. So you should be able to print the APS report information all version. So again, the plan is to send out an emailed communication this week, or if not by the end of this week, very early next week, and it will contain this full list of items that were resolved. And the project team has also begun retesting another round of issues, and any of those that pass the testing will be deployed into production on July 26th. I apologize that I don't have a list of those items that they started testing on. Yesterday proved to be a pretty busy day, and I wasn't able to go through the list and pull out the details for you, but we will certainly cover the list of items that deploys on the 26th at our next meeting on July 30th. And again, we'll also send out an emailed communication with that list as well. I can say that some of the issues that are probably top of mind and that you're hoping would have been deployed on the 12th are still in testing, and hopefully some of those will be included on the 26th. Those include the remaining issues with active equals yes and on the PCPs, and remaining issues with signatures on the PCPs. And there was also an APS issue that we had been working on related to action requests query that's still outstanding, and attachments, all the attachments issues. I think I mentioned this when we met a couple of weeks ago, but we do have approximately 70 roles, and so testing that was quite a large effort. We have been able to test through that, but we did need to submit several issues to our vendor for resolution. So they will be working to resolve those issues over the course of the next several weeks. And so we hope that some of those attachment issues will be resolved by our next deploy at the end of the month on July 26th. And there will be a whole host of other items that we'll be retesting and working on, but some of those were ones that I know have not been successfully resolved yet, and are probably ones that are causing you the most trouble right now. So apologies that we're still in testing and resolution on those, but rest assured that we are still actively working on them. Few other items that I wanted to share with everybody. One in particular was around notifications and how notifications works. So there are a variety of notifications that are set up in the system, and depending on your role, you may receive one or many notifications, different types of notifications. And depending on the notification, you may receive many each day. Some roles may only receive notifications sporadically, but when a new notification comes in to your notifications icon, it will come in as bold, which means that it has not been read by you yet. And next to the notifications icon on your persistent menu, the white menu at the top of the screen, you'll see a little, it's referred to as a badge, but it'll be a little red bubble, and that bubble will increment up with by number each time you receive a new notification. So if that bubble shows like 5, that means you have 5 unread messages. And then once the next one comes in, it will increment up to 6. So that will be a quick way for you to notice if you have new notifications that you haven't been aware of and read yet, because that number will increase. So if you see that number go up, then you definitely want to go check out your notifications. If you had cleared your notifications and now the red bubble appears, that means you have new notifications and you should go check those out. Once you've clicked on a notification, it will unbold. This means that you've viewed the notification. If you haven't taken whatever action you need to take associated with that notification, you can select the bubble to the left, or the little square to the left of that notification. And then once you do that, you'll get some new menu items and you can mark that as unread. Or if there's a bolded one that you want to mark as read, you can simply select that one and click the button for mark as read. If you've completed the notification entirely, you have no more actions that you need to take. You can archive that by using the ellipses to the far right, the 3 dots. You can click on that and then there'll be an option for archive. So you can archive notifications to get them out of your view. But anything that you want to keep in there for easy access, you can keep in there, unbolded or bolded, whatever works for you for organizing those. If you have access to the person record that you received the notification on, and I say that because, again, right now for PCP data entry role, you may receive a notification for a service implementation plan, but you may not have an active assignment to that person record. And so you might still receive the notification, but when you click on it, it may provide an access denied message because it can't navigate you to the person record where that service implementation plan exists. But for the most part, if you receive a notification, you should be able to click into that notification and it will navigate you directly to the form or the person record or wherever the notification is being triggered from and where you might need to take action. I did want to cover specifically a few notifications just for community case managers and care coordinators specifically, so that you understood a few of the notifications that your role receives. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the reportable event notifications. There are several reportable event notification types that the community case manager, care coordinator roles will receive. Other roles will also receive some of these notifications, but specifically for community case managers and care coordinators, I wanted to cover these because there are some actions that you do need to take when you receive these. And I think there's been also a little bit of confusion about what some of these are being sent to you, why some of these are being sent to you. So the first that I wanted to make you aware about is, as the assigned community case manager or care coordinator, you will receive a notification each time a reportable event is completed for a person that you are actively assigned to. That notification will have a message of reportable event ID, and they'll have the ID number for person ID, and they'll have the ID number has been completed for review. As the assigned community case manager or care coordinator, you should navigate into that reportable event, which you can right from the notification, and you should review that notification, and then you should use the workflow status in that reportable event to change that to acknowledge. If you do that, then you can archive away the notification and you have no further actions that you need to take. If you do not navigate into that reportable event and review and acknowledge it within 1 business day, you will start receiving daily notifications from the system. And they will tell you, they'll have a message that says reportable event ID, and it will provide the ID for person ID, and it will provide that ID has not been acknowledged. This notification will continue to send to you daily until you take that action of reviewing that reportable event and setting the workflow status to acknowledge. This is, again, a daily reminder. It is not duplicating the reportable event itself, but it's a reminder to you that you, as the assigned case manager or care coordinator, have the responsibility of reviewing and acknowledging that reportable event. So until you do that, you'll continue to get those daily reminder notifications. As an assigned community case manager or care coordinator, you will also receive, I should also say about those acknowledgement reminders, they will also go to your assigned supervisor. So your supervisor will also be receiving those until you review and acknowledge that reportable event. That's just so that they're aware that those are out there in case maybe you're out sick or something along those lines. You will also receive notification as the data enterer. So if anybody who entered a reportable event, if you have not completed the provider follow-up on that reportable event, 5 days prior to the due date, a notification will be triggered, and it will have a title of reportable event ID, providing the ID, for person ID, providing the ID. Provider follow-up has not been completed and is due in 5 days. Again, that's going to go to whoever entered that reportable event. And it's just a reminder that that reportable event was submitted, completed, but the provider follow-up attached to that has not been completed and needs to be completed within 5 days. As the assigned community case manager or care coordinator, there are a couple of distinct notifications that will be sent to you with regard to emergency restraint reportable events. So if there are 3 or more reportable event forms within 14 calendar days where the incident category is equal to emergency restraint, then you as the assigned case manager or care coordinator will receive a message that says an IST is needed for person ID, and it will provide you the person ID as they have 3 or more reportable events with a category of emergency restraint within a 14 calendar days. And you should then go open and schedule an IST meeting. And then similarly, if there are 6 or more reportable event forms completed within 365 calendar days where it has that category of emergency restraint, then you'll also receive a message that indicates such. The last reportable event related notification that you might receive as a community case manager or a care coordinator, also as just a data enterer, so somebody that entered a reportable event, you'll also receive this one, is that if you've started a reportable event and it remains in the in progress status for more than 24 hours, a notification will also trigger to remind you that you created that reportable event over 24 hours ago, but you have not yet completed it. So that's just a reminder to you that you need to finish that reportable event. So you should go in and finish it and set it to complete. Or if it was created an error, then you should close it so that it's no longer sitting out there in progress. So those are the notifications that you'll receive related to reportable events. I also wanted to talk a little bit about a few notifications that you'll receive related to the person-centered planning and prior authorization process. So there are 3 specific notifications that you will receive as an assigned community case manager or care coordinator. I'm sorry, there's 2 that you'll receive as an assigned community case manager or care coordinator, and there's 1 that the provider authorizations role will receive. So as a community case manager, care coordinator, you'll receive a notification when the resource coordination team or care monitor team has moved the PCP into the status of pending provider selection after the state review has been completed. This is to let you know that they've completed the state review and that you should now go in and complete the service implementation planning provider selection process and then set the plan to complete. You will also receive a distinct notification that indicates as such if the resource coordinator submits a request for clarification when reviewing a prior authorization that was auto-generated off your PCP. So after you've set your PCP to complete, it will auto-create those prior authorizations if it's an annual or initial, and your resource coordinator will be reviewing and approving those PAs. And if they have any questions or concerns about a prior authorization, they can use the request for clarification workflow, and it will notify you that they have a question about that specific prior authorization before they're able to approve that. You'll receive that as an assigned case manager or care coordinator. As a provider authorization role who has an active location assignment to a person record, you will receive a notification each time the resource coordinator approves a service line within the prior authorization and submits that PA to MIMS for processing. Now, I will say that the content of that notification is a little bit misleading because it does indicate that MIMS has processed the PA successfully. It's not technically processed by MIMS at that point. It has been approved by your resource coordinator and submitted for processing. So we will be adjusting the language on that notification specifically, but it's to let you know that that PA, that line within that PA has been approved by your resource coordination team and it's gone over to MIMS to be processed. So there are a variety of other notifications. I'm not going to cover all of those today, but I know there had been some confusion about the reportable event one, and I know there'd been some questions about what notifications were going out to assigned case managers related to activities that the resource coordination team is taking. So I just wanted to cover those ones specifically today. I also wanted to provide a couple of reminders for assigned case managers, care coordinators related to the person-centered plan. Number one is related to, we continue to hear from some providers that when they go in to fill out their service implementation plan, they're not seeing any goals associated with that service. So I wanted to remind case managers, care coordinators, the order of operations in the person-centered plan so that the provider is able to see the associated goals. So you need to make sure as the case manager, care coordinator, that you fill out the entire My Life Planning section, meaning you fill out the services and support section, the needs, the strengths, the barriers, and the goals. And that in the goals, you link the services, needs, strengths, and barriers before you invite providers to submit service implementation plans. If you don't do all of the My Life Planning stuff and link all of those items up in the goals before inviting providers, it's gonna auto create the service implementation plan without that content. So again, it's very important that you fill out the My Life Planning section and link everything in your goals before you go into the waiver service and invite the provider to submit their service implementation plan. This will then allow them to be able to see all the goals that are linked to that service and appropriately be able to provide the information that you need in the service implementation plan. Second reminder that I wanted to give everybody is that when a person is classified on a specific waiver, so section 18, 21, 29, it is important that when you're completing that corresponding person-centered plan, so a section 18, 21, or 29 person-centered plan, that you add at least one waiver service before you set that PCP to complete. If you don't do that, it will not request that you attest to the person-centered plan because it thinks it's a section 13 plan, even though you've indicated that it's 18, 21, or 29. And then when you revise from that plan later, you know, for an annual or a change or something along those lines, and you get all the way to the end and you try to set it to complete, it will error. It will not let you complete the plan because it's not going to provide you that case manager attestation. And there's no way to get it. So you'll have done a lot of work and you won't be able to complete that PCP. So again, it's very important if you're completing a PCP that's section 18, 21, or 29, that you add at least one waiver service before you set that plan to complete. If in the rare instance, there's a person classified on waiver who is electing to not choose any waiver services, then you should fill out a section 13 PCP. This will allow you to set it to complete and revise off that PCP when you need to make changes or do an annual because it won't have that case manager attestation. So I'll also put these reminders in the weekly emailed communication, but just wanted to cover those at this meeting as well. So I think those were all of the informational updates. I know that took a little bit longer than normal, so apologies that I ate up half of our meeting, but I do see we have a few questions in the Q&A, and hopefully I'll be able to get to all of them before our time elapses. So the first question is, can you please walk through the process for positive support plans, functional assessments, and behavior management plan submission? It's unclear to us which roles do what steps. The PowerPoint did not detail this, just the steps to completion. We have clinicians wondering if they should have Evergreen access. Great question. So positive support plans are still created outside of Evergreen. There is not an electronic positive support plan form built into Evergreen. So you should still fill out positive support plans on paper. Those can be filled out by whatever party is responsible for implementing the positive support plan. As a case manager who has access to the system, you can upload positive support plans under the person record. And apologies, I do not know if there are any challenges with the community case manager role and the person record attachments at this time. So hopefully you still have the ability to do that. But if you don't, that issue will be resolved. But again, as a case manager, care coordinator, or a provider who has location assignment to the person record, any of those roles should be able to upload positive support plans to the person's record directly. The presence of that positive support plan will be recognized by the comprehensive assessment and the person-centered planning process by the system. So if a positive support plan attachment exists on the person's record, it will display as an active positive support plan in the comprehensive assessment and person-centered planning process. If there is a need if that positive support plan needs to be escalated to a behavior management plan, there is a behavior management plan form in Evergreen that should be filled out. And that behavior management plan will similarly feed the comprehensive assessment and person-centered planning process. Now, the intention is that the behavior management plan can ultimately be submitted by, again, community case managers or providers who have a location assignment to the person record, whoever the appropriate party would be. But right now, there are attachment issues for the behavior management plan for the provider roles. So people with the PCP data entry role are not able to currently submit behavior management plans because they can't attach the appropriate documentation to that behavior management plan packet form. So they are still reliant on roles that do have the ability to attach the appropriate documents. So I believe that the workaround had been for providers to be reaching out to the person's assigned case manager or care coordinator and asking for you to submit those on their behalf. I am unsure, and apologies that I don't have my head wrapped around all of the attachments issues right now, but I am unsure whether there are any challenges for case managers or care coordinators with BMPs right now. If that's the case, please submit a ticket and we'll help you get those behavior management plans, any attachments attached to those behavior management plans and submitted for crisis team, 3-person committee team review. Hopefully that answered the question, Misty. I see there was a follow-up from Chris. Did you say providers can upload attachments now? Sorry, I didn't catch that. No, Chris, I don't believe that you can still, as providers, I don't believe that you can upload attachments yet. So apologies that that's still not resolved. All of those issues have been tracked and are submitted up to FEI, our vendor, for resolution. They will be resolving those over the course of the next several weeks. But for right now, I think you still need to follow the workaround process of asking your assigned case manager or care coordinator for support with that. Great. The next question is, we have a number of +3s or service locations that are never used. We sometimes reuse these for new service locations we need to enroll. It was taking a very long time for what was really an address edit to roll back to Evergreen's locations. Has this process been sped up? We want to use the +3s, but don't want members to wait longer than necessary to be able to begin services. Yeah, great question. There was a bug in the system where your address updates that were occurring on the MIMS side were not showing up in Evergreen. It was an issue with, so we receive a nightly feed of data related to organization and location or provider data from MIMS. It's referred to as the pub file. It's a standard publication set of data that's available to a number of vendors and state offices and that kind of thing. So we receive that nightly. Evergreen receives that nightly. And then there's a couple of different steps in order to load that data into Evergreen. And on one of those steps, the address updates were not loading. I believe that issue has been resolved successfully now. So you should be seeing those address updates flowing into Evergreen now on the more standard cadence or process. So I believe that when you submit the maintenance case, it will go to OMS, and that takes a day or two for them to review that case and ensure that you've provided all of the data that's necessary. And then it may be up to a week or so, depending on their backlog. I'm not entirely sure how long it takes on their side. But then once they've reviewed and accepted the change, then the status of that case will update and the content will be made available to that pub data while they potentially finish any contract changes, if there's any contract changes associated with the address change. I don't think that's typical. I think that's typical for just new enrollment locations. But if for some reason there's any contract changes that are associated with an address change, then there's another process that still needs to occur on the OMS side. But while the contracting is occurring, the location data has been made available to be picked up by that publication file. So then it will come to us that evening in the feed, and then it will be processed very early the next morning and should be available in Evergreen. So straight address changes should be occurring, I would expect, depending on OMS's backlog, within about 5-ish business days, maybe a little bit longer if there's a backlog on OMS side for review of those. But certainly once you see the status change, and I apologize, I can't remember what the status is called when it moves into the completed state, but maybe still needing contract changes. Once you see that status change, then you should see it in Evergreen within like 1 to 2 business days. So for address changes should be relatively quick. For enrollments, the process is a bit longer. It will need to come to ODES through the queue for review and approval of services, and then it will go back to OMS and move into that status that will allow the data to flow over to us and then go into the contracting phase. So that I expect may take like a couple of weeks. But I think at this point it should be safe for you to reuse some of those NPI +3s. Hopefully that answered your question, Phil. Any update on active plan issues. We have 32 PCPs that are non-active that should be active with seemingly no reason as to why. Yeah, I apologize for that, Megan. That's taking a little bit longer than anticipated to get rolled out. I had been really hopeful that it was going to be part of the deploy this past Friday. I thoroughly expect it to be part of the deploy on the 26th. Hopefully, if any of those are plans that need to be revised, you've submitted issues related to those, and our team is working to help you make sure that you can work around those. But certainly understand the importance of getting the active equals yes issue resolved. So again, more to come. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get that resolved by the 26th of this month. But if you have anything urgent, please definitely submit issue related to each. And if you could, I hate to say this, but if you could submit separate issues for each PCP that you need us to assist with. But again, hopefully you're not waiting to revise all of those 32, and hopefully some of them are just fall into one of those categories where it just the effective date hasn't rolled around, and it will become and reflect active once the effective date has rolled around. But hopefully you're also aware of the active equals yes and the reasons why PCPs might not be active equals yes. It's in the help center in Evergreen. There's a informational document that will tell you all the different reasons why a person's record might have no active equals yes plans. If each of these people doesn't fall into any of those categories, then that truly is related to the outstanding active equals yes bug. But many plans are updating to active equals yes appropriately. And sometimes you can resolve it yourself if you follow one of the if you can distinguish what the issue is and follow the instructions in that informational sheet. Next question is, have added agency self-direction to do SIPs, and they have a red circle with a line through it when trying to complete. What can I do to help as the case manager to get this done, as the plan is overdue? So, Karen, it sounds like you're saying that there was self-directed services that were added to the person-centered plan, and you invited the provider, and it created the service implementation plan. But the completion requirements are not met on the service implementation plan. I'm not entirely sure if that's what you're saying. I guess I would need a little bit more information about what specifically is not being met in the completion requirements. I think that that's what you're saying. If you can send me a little bit more detail, I'll try to respond to it here. If not, please submit an issue through the submission form with the person ID, form ID. Okay, so yes, you invited the provider. They can see the SIPs, but they're unable to do anything with it. There's a red circle is all that they get. Is the red circle related to the completion requirements, or like, I guess I'm not sure what the red circle is. What would be super helpful is if we could get like a screenshot of that, so you're not seeing it, they are. So if you could have them submit, suggest to them to submit an issue through the issue submission form with the details about what they're seeing, where they're seeing it, maybe even like a picture of what they're seeing, that would be super helpful for us, and then we'll try to help troubleshoot that. So there's a question about, will providers ever be given access to PCP meeting notes? We are needing to reach out to case managers to get additional details such as date of the PCP, attendees, service hour changes, etc. It has made more work for both case managers and service providers. Yeah, so from a service implementation planning perspective, your SIP should have the overview details with the PCP dates, and you should have the goals and the needs and the strengths and the barriers and all that stuff. Currently, the process is that when a plan has been set to complete, the case manager or care coordinator should be giving you a PDF version of the completed PCP, but there is the intent that at some point as a provider, you will also be able to access that final PDF version of the PCP yourself. That is just taking a while for us to make that available to you because of the access structure of Evergreen. It's a lot different than EIS for security reasons and on purpose, but it's making it a little bit more challenging for us to make that version of the PCP available to you. But please, I know that that is frustrating and extra work, but please bear with us. I have been trying to remind case managers and care coordinators to make that part of their process, to just print the PDF version of the, or save the PDF version of the PCP and send that to the active providers. But I know sometimes that's extra work and time, and sometimes they forget, and you're having to reach out as providers. But again, we do anticipate giving you that access eventually. It's just quite a bit more complicated change because of the access structure. So it is taking a little while. So I see that there's something here for Emily. I don't know that Emily. Oh, Emily, you're here. I'm gonna leave that one. I don't know if you want to.
I'm here. I don't yeah, I don't have that role, Heidi, so I couldn't speak to referral events.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can try to respond to it. Sorry, I didn't even read it. Will the state be issuing a revised reportable event and follow-up form to align with the information? Yes, so those should be available, Heidi, in the help center in Evergreen. They also were attached to some previous emailed communications. Maybe we haven't gotten the provider follow-up one out yet. I'm sorry. Let me quickly check. On. Sorry, not just 1 second. The reportable event form. Yep, I think they're both in there. Let me just show you really quick. I'll try to share my screen here. They should have been attached to a recent communication, but they are available from within Evergreen as well. Shoot. I just forget that I have to push that extra share button. So I've navigated to the help center in Evergreen, and it's available from your home screen right here. So you just click on help and you go to help center, and it will pop up this separate window here. And in here, you can see the Evergreen reportable event fillable form, and you can view or download that. And this matches, see if it pops open so you can view it. This matches the reportable event form that's in Evergreen. So you can fill this out and send it if needed, or download it, fill it out, send it. And also we have the fillable form for the reportable event provider follow-up, and same thing, you can view or download that. And fill that out if needed, if there's some reason that you were unable to submit the reportable event in the Evergreen. So hopefully that answered your question. The next question is, who assigns the reportable event user role? That is my team, the information services manager team, when it's a new user. So a new request for a new user should be filled out, form should be filled out and indicate that they need reportable event provider role. There's a question about, when did the reminder notification start for reportable event follow-ups? So when we first went live, all of the notifications were implemented, and then we had some issues with the notifications triggering for individuals that should not have been receiving them. So we shut a lot of the notifications off, including those reportable event notifications. We turned those back on after we resolved the issues. I don't know the exact date, but I think it's been at least a month now since we turned those back on. So you should be receiving all of your reportable event notifications now. There are still a few notifications that have not been turned back on. They are related to some of the crisis forms. Those will be turned back on in the next few weeks here, but for the most part, all notifications have been turned back on. Comments are being added to reclass and application forms requesting additional information. CCM are not getting any notification or other communication about the needed info request. This may be, Krista, this may be related to a few of those crisis notifications that have not yet been turned back on. So I can definitely take this and follow up to see if that's the case. But if you have more information, details about what sort of notifications you're not receiving or communications you're not receiving, if you could submit that through the issue submission form, that would be helpful. And we can definitely follow up on it, but I've tracked this down to try to do some follow-up and see if there are any of those outstanding notifications that might be causing some of this trouble. And again, we hope to get all of the notifications turned back on in the next few weeks here. Is there directions in Evergreen for linking the My Life planning to the plan before inviting a provider to do the SIP? Yeah, great question. This was covered in one of the training sessions, one of the community case manager care coordinator training sessions. I will also jot that down and try to find that so that we can direct you to the training recording where that's covered. There isn't a specific instructional like PDF or document in the help center yet for that, but I can also put that on the list of items that would be helpful if we could create that step-by-step instruction guide for you as well, Heidi. I'd like to request some clarification regarding someone with a waiver who currently doesn't have active services. Are you saying the PCP will error if there is not at least one waiver service there? If the person is looking for services, what should we put in there? Yeah, the PCP won't error, which is which is the problem, Megan. So if you have a person who's actively classified on a waiver and you've started a PCP and it's under the program of 21, 29, or 18, if you don't put at least one waiver service on that PCP before you set it to complete, it will complete the PCP without any trouble, and you won't know that there's any problem. You won't recognize that there's any problem until you try to revise that PCP and you get all the way to the end and you're trying to set that PCP to complete. It won't provide for you the case manager attestation that is required in order to set that revised version of the PCP to complete. So what we're suggesting is that if you have a person that's classified on waiver and they are not going to be and you're not going to be able to add a waiver service to that PCP, then you should create a section 13 PCP. And you can set that to complete without the waiver services without any trouble. But if you are trying to complete an 18, 21, or 29, and you don't have at least one waiver service added to that PCP, it will create problems for you downstream. So please don't set that plan to complete without a waiver service on it. I don't know if Emily or anybody else wants to chime in on that. I think that's the best guidance that I can give. The next question is there a way a provider can see what a case manager sends or enters in the PCP for the hours needed for each service? We as the provider at times are not getting the correct amount needed that we enter in our SIP authorization. I am not sure if the CM has a form in the PCP. We can't see the PCP that gets sent to the, yeah. Great question. So there is no separate form that's filled out by the case manager. They just populate the hours against the PCP under the waiver service. And then the prior authorization is auto-generated by the system for initials and annuals. If they're attempting to request a change in service, then they document the details related to the service change in the change in waiver services section of the PCP. As a provider, you should be able to see all these details in the completed version, PDF version of the PCP that your case manager or your care coordinator provides to you. We are also working to add that level of detail to your PA utilization report. But that also is just a little bit more challenging because the majority of the details in the PA utilization report come from the prior authorization module itself, and trying to incorporate the hours that are entered on the PCP side is proving to be a bit more challenging than I had hoped. So it's taking a lot longer to get that added to your PA utilization report. But we are trying to add hours, frequency, and rate to the PA utilization report. It's just taking a little bit of time because the content is not just gleaned directly from the prior authorization form itself. It has to come from those different areas, and it requires some calculation and things like that in certain areas. So apologies that that's taking longer, but in the meantime, you should be able to see all of those details when your case manager or care coordinator finishes the PCP and provides you that PDF version. There's a comment here that you also have, Heidi has 5 PCPs that are not active and that the CMs cannot access. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, again, if there's something urgent that needs to occur, you know, and you have a question about why they're not active, you can definitely submit an issue through the issue submission form. If you know for a fact that it's related to the outstanding issue, the only workaround right now for that is to create an initial and get that PCP completed so that you can, you know, get whatever urgent issue handled. So piggybacking on Carol's question, it would be super helpful if a field could be added to the SIP where the CM enters the units and schedule of services being requested. Appreciate that feedback, Anita. I'll certainly take that back to business and discuss whether that's something that they would like to add to the service implementation plan for himself. But I am not authorized to make those decisions, but I definitely jotted it down and we'll take that feedback. And we are at 9:01. So, and I have answered all the questions that are in the Q&A. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Everybody have a fantastic day and week. Keep your eye out for the emailed communication. And our next scheduled production deploy will be on the 26th, and our next meeting will be on July 30th. And I look forward to seeing you guys then. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.